I know I just said in the last video that I'm planning on making Wednesday's videos anything but figure reviews, but I'm so far behind at this point that I want to try and get a little caught up. I'm sure everyone's just devastated that this wasn't a video about me ranting on how the Bumblebee movie wasn't a reboot or something. You'll all just have to make do with me talking about the High Moon designs you all love. I'm sure this is just too much to bear. And yes, we have to call them the High Moon designs now because Hasbro thought it was a great idea to keep reusing the names of everything on everything. So now there's like 4 different robots in disguise, 3 different War for Cybertrons, 2 or 3 different Cyberverses, and oh no, I've gone cross-eyed from trying to keep all this straight. So, your likes! Please give. And if you enjoyed this video by the end and you aren't subscribed already, please consider it. It's Gamer Edition High Moon Bumblebee and Barricade from the hit game War for Cybertron. And look, maybe it's not fair for me to be the guy who reviews these things. I've made no secret the last several years of the fact that I hate the High Moon aesthetic. I'm not sure which I despise more, Bay or this, with its wonky triangular and diamond-shaped everything, where their bodies look like a nightmare to try and live in because every inch of them has to muscle its way past every bad idea the designer ever had. But to be fair, I think that in spite of the aesthetic I hate, these are 2 of just the most loathsome figures we've ever gotten in any Transformers line ever. So you know what? I may actually be the most supremely qualified person to give these the shit they deserve. Starting out with how I don't know which one of these looks worse. I mean, in the game, Barricade has one of the most boring, forgettable designs I've ever seen. To the point where not only did I forget that he was in the game, but while playing the game, his design made me forget the movie character exists. I just thought the name sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't connect this boring-ass design to that guy. And to be fair, this figure is trying to make itself more interesting by engaging in a sick and twisted ritual. The Kibble-ening, where all the damned souls of the worst Transformers figures pass their kib onto one vessel. An effigy not meant to contain it, but to spread the disease to every eye that dares gaze into the eldritch abyss that is his visage. He's got a backpack to make Ursi proud, and these saddlebags on his shins that I'm not sure what to do with. I've seen pictures of it like this, or this, or this, and in all 3 of them, his shins get in the way of his arms. That is prodigious anti-kibble management. The person who designed this affliction should be tried for crimes against humanity. Oh, and did I mention that he has no heels, and that his clown shoes are incredibly loose, meaning that this is the first figure I've ever handled where when I set him down, I'm not sure which direction he's going to fall, but I'm pretty sure that he's not going to stand. I straighten his feet too much, he falls backwards. I don't straighten them enough, and he just collapses. Currently, I'm only writing this review, but I know filming this is going to be a bitch because this loser just refuses to hold himself up. If you could have these back panels on his legs form some heels, that would have really helped, but they can't reach the ground, so that's a bust, and I'm pretty sure that they're supposed to go behind these spurs on the backs of his feet. And none of that helps with the huge backpack, which, while not the heaviest thing in the world, is still probably 20% of the figure's weight that's hanging really far off the back. Oh, and don't let me forget to mention how boring his paint scheme is. I mean, come on, guys, you took the dullest design in the whole franchise and then just sanded off the most interesting thing about it? Where are his energy lines? It was the only thing keeping me from falling asleep while looking at this guy. So far with this loser, we are boring, we are built badly, and we're ugly. But then we get to Bumblebee and, oh no! An already uncool design has been destroyed by becoming the Hunchback of Notre Dame with a beer belly that consumed his chest, waist, and crotch. This thing goes head, slope, thighs. What's funny is if you took a shot of him from the top and then plonked that onto his hips at a different angle, that could actually have looked like a person and not Igor being portrayed in a movie by an actual monster. And I have to say that this is one of the wibbliest feeling figures I've ever had the displeasure of handling. He's basically a ball of torso with incredibly thin limbs that are all relatively loose, but the loosest thing about him is his mafia legs. I literally can't do anything with these without snapping him off at the knee. I can't even use his wrong direction ankle tilts without doing this. And these are loose as hell too. Plus, I swear that this was misassembled before it was sent to me. There is no way that they were like, yeah, let's put the joints on the fucking outside, and then have the ankle tilts go the wrong direction! Bro can only hyperpronate his ankles like he's trying to walk in high heels for the first time. Normally, you have to go around the back of a figure for it to start getting ugly. Ironically, from behind, this thing looks mostly okay, aside from his 2 buttholes. It's from the side that this thing really looks its worst. Dude has world record-setting armpits and shins where the bone is growing on the outside. Honestly, both of these figures look unfinished. Like with the ankle bags on Barricade, it looks like they just gave up, and here it's just everything. The shins, feet, and ankles are a mess, the elbows are weird as hell, the body is wrong, just wrong, the back just keeps going up and up and up, and somehow he looks like he's constantly leaning over. Plus the way the wheel arches bend in a little, but not really, isn't flattering in the least. While Barricade had some tumors hanging off his legs, Bumblebee here looks like 90% of his mass is comprised of actual cancer. And he likes to fall over too because of his insubstantial feet and their limited posing that only works the wrong way. But then we get to the heads and, well, with Barricade, I still have literally nothing to say. Other than, this is actually more distinct than the guy from the game, which came out in that period of time in that PS3, Xbox 360 era of video games where for some reason they forgot how digital lighting works, so they were trying new types of illumination in them that human eyes just reject. There were a few games that stood out for that. The Darkness, Condemned, and Transformers, where it felt like your eyes had developed very disobedient minds of their own and refused to focus on what you ordered them to. So this dude's already all black face may as well have been a void of nothingness as far as my eyes were concerned trying to play the game. But now that I can see it in a light source that wasn't pure gamma radiation emitting from my TV screen causing my eyes to bleed, it's really just a boring kind of head with a relatively goon-like face. Boy, this sure does capture the nothing I feel about this design. But Bumblebee, on the other hand, actually kind of has an excellent head. This is the first and quite possibly the only thing that either of these two do that I unambiguously like. It looks like Bumblebee with an update, more technological feeling. It doesn't look silly or make the mistake of trying to make him look fat like a lot of his figures and designs for some reason attempt to, even though he was never actually like that back in the day. I mean, I don't know that they should have put the cuts in his cheeks to make him look gaunt going the other way, but I appreciate them standing out for it. Not only is this a good design for Bumblebee's head, but honestly, I'd even be so bold as to say this is one of the best heads Bumblebee has ever gotten, which surprises me because I hated the way their faces were too robotic in those games, to the point where they all looked like nightmarish puppets. But yeah, good head here at least. And I mean, what more do I have to say about the look of these two? They look like shit. Even if I don't take into account my distaste for these designs at base level, Bumblebee is proportioned flat out incorrectly and feels like he was designed inside out, with way too much of his structure facing outwards towards his audience. And Barricade looks like more kibble than person. Also with bad proportions, though I think that that's just the design. And speaking of the design, this dude just looks boring. Bumblebee at least has the spark of an idea. I'd argue that it's a mostly bad one, but Barricade looks like a generic background enemy that you're kind of supposed to kill in droves, but he was a main playable character in the game's first level. While the ground soldiers from Devastation, who were actually supposed to be generic bad guys you slaughter by the hundreds, looked more like main characters than this dude, by a significant margin. And so far, we're just ignoring the fact that both of these are built like crap. Both want to fall over, with Barricade being the significantly worse offender of the two, but Bumblebee has legs that you could breathe on and probably cause to snap the wrong way, and both have parts that want to fall off. If we're just going off this category alone, I'd tell you to stay away. But there's 5 other categories that are reason enough for you to want to stay away, so let's get to those. Starting with accessories. You know what's lamer than gun hands? Gun forearms. You know what's the lamest possible version of gun forearms? Teeny tiny little rinky-dink baby gun forearms. Yeah, you remember those huge, shiny, heavily detailed borderline cannon assemblies they had on their arms in the games that were covered in lights and different colors of paint? Well, now those are replaced with these tiny all-gray pieces of shit that look pathetic. For some reason, Bumblebee's two do not combine, even though that would have made them at least tolerable. Both figures attach theirs wrong, as they're kind of supposed to hang from their arms, rather than be pointed like this is Prime. And then for some godforsaken reason, their arms are keyed, so the forearms only attach one way, which makes putting them back on so much more of a hassle than it needed to be. And for some reason, Barricade, the so far worse figure, only comes with one. And this would all be bad enough until you realize that these accessories very easily could have had pegs on the bottoms of them, so the figures could have also chosen to hold them like normal guns if you didn't want to engage with their bullshit. But no, instead for once, it's the worst of all worlds, where in order to use the accessories, we have to parts form off desperately important pieces of the figures and leave them off to the side somewhere. Get ready for a lot of these figures showing up on eBay missing an arm because children will lose these. What kind of Satanist comes up with an idea this bad? To glorify the ultimate evil, I will make a toy that already sucks significantly worse. I don't know that I've ever ranted about accessories this much, but just like last time, Hasbro has taken a bunch of trash and slapped it into my hands, saying only, "Here, you throw this away." Then how do these pose? I'm sorry about that laugh. It wasn't derisive enough. We'll start with Bumblebee because he's at least tolerable. Head with a lot of side to side and a good amount of up down. Shoulders pull a lot less than a 90, and the shoulder pads love to pop off. Elbows only pull a 90, narcissus, but they break the sculpt of the arm up something fierce. Oh well, it looks terrible already. Legs are impeded out to the side, but not forward and back. Knees bend pretty deep, but you can sheath them in a really unsatisfying way for slightly more. Mafia shins that you basically can't not use, and feet that only pivot the wrong way! And have a toe up if you untransform them a bit, and a toe down is standard. Like I said with this one, frustrating, below average, and wibbly with some shit that likes to fall off, but acceptable. As for Barricade... head only barely goes forward and back. It does not swivel. I don't know why it wouldn't. That seems like it would be a really easy thing for this to do, but on mine, this will break before it swivels. Shoulders pull significantly less than a 90, and the backpack eats up a lot of the arm's other ranges. Elbows pull even more significantly less than a 90. Wrists technically swivel, but can't because of a plate in their way. Hips are impeded going forward and are forced to cock off to get out as far as they can. They are impeded backwards, and they almost can't go out to the side at all. Significantly less than 90 knees, and feet that have a toe up that you don't want. And there is no hyperbole or exaggeration when I say that this is the worst posing figure I've ever handled that came out after 1996. Literally everything this does is either massively below average or just missing. I do not have enough vitriol in my body to proclaim just how fucking garbage the posing on this thing is. But hey, at least the transformation has to not be shit, right? Right? Well, the transformation on Bumblebee could have been okay, were it not for the fact that his backpack and his shoulder pads are constantly trying to pop off. So if those stayed on, all you'd be dealing with is a really clashy conversion with a complete lack of clearances, cleverly masquerading as something not completely and utterly loathsome. How do the shoulder pads fall off so easily but are so hard to put back on? And how the fuck am I supposed to get the shoulder assembly through the tiny hole it's supposed to go through without popping off the entire arm? I'll be honest, I really like the way the wrists work. That part is super cool, and the back of the alt mode is pretty clever. But why the fuck are there two shin pieces that seem to solely exist for a cosmetic function that really get in the way, and then the back just doesn't want to go together? Oh, there is so much Play-Doh factor. And why does none of this plug in structurally, and only plug into the shell? Was this designed by the guy who made Nightbird? I am trying to transform this off camera while writing this review, and I am legitimately mad. Why won't you just snap together, you son of a bitch? On the other hand, while Barricade is stiff, and you do a lot less, and it's nowhere near as clever, and it's also clashy, and it's also hard to get everything pegged together, and there's also a lot of Play-Doh factor, it's not maddeningly infuriating like Bumblebee. I am an adult, why is this so fucking hard? In comparison, this seems like a joyride. Taken on its own, I can tell you that it's the kind of transformation that you deal with if the alt mode is worth it. Which, you know, it's not. This could have made a decent Batmobile if it weren't for everything else about the figure, and I do have to hand it to them, it looks a lot less stupid in person. Like in every picture I saw, this thing was just a hideous wedge of a thing that climbed up and up and up in the back in a logarithmic function to achieve one of the dumbest, ugliest shapes I think a toy has ever attempted, and while there is some degree of that still happening, it's nowhere near as bad as I feared. And yes, I do find this hideous because, again, this style just wasn't for me, but it's also just not accurate. In the game, it looked like some kind of muscle car. Here, it's like an ugly concept car that got in a bad teleporter accident with a dragster. It's both subtle and not. It just looks wrong. And boy, when everything about this is about as terrible as it gets, it's got no excuse for the peg tires. I don't normally give a crap about these. Big whoop. The ones on the front aren't even all that noticeable, but the ones on the back stand out like a sore thumb. And the fact that they are canted for no reason gives my OCD an aneurysm. And then Bumblebee, provided that I can get him into alt mode for this fucking video, looks basically perfect as what he's supposed to be. I just hate what he's supposed to be. We know what Bumblebee was supposed to be on Cybertron, a space saucer-like hovering car, whereas this is basically just a year 3000 version of the Volkswagen Beetle, which for some reason very distinctly has tires. Look, if you like this design, then this is the best mode either of these two have. Even if the shoulder armor kind of pokes out a bit and it's just impossible to get it into its vehicle form, put it in this mode and just leave it in this mode. Whereas I don't know that Barricade has a best mode. It's probably his car, but that's just because, hey, it's less ugly like this, and that makes it so that way the fact that it can't pose isn't a problem. And ultimately, I'm gonna say, don't get either of these. They both suck like a 60-year-old veteran porn star. Bumblebee is just kind of generally bad in every way in robot mode, with a transformation that makes a guy like me, who says that Deformation Space Starscream really isn't that bad, pull my hair out in rage. And leaves me literally uncertain while writing this if I will be able to get it into vehicle mode fully for the video.
Fuck! Piece of shit. Fucking piece of shit. Fucking. Ah! Ha-ha!
No joke, I've been trying to transform this for like 2 hours now while I think of each next thing to write in this script, and I still haven't gotten it to come together in the back. As for Barricade, I do not say this lightly, I think we may have finally found a figure shittier than the Ursi. Did Ursi look great? No, and she definitely had a worse transformation, but she probably looked better than this. She posed about a dozen times better than this. I didn't feel tempted to throw her accessories away. At least her alt mode looked mostly right and was worth keeping around as a separate shell. But the simple fact of the matter is that I can say that the posing was good on Ursi. There is not one good thing I can say about Barricade. I don't know if the lows are as low on this guy, I just know that by some evil miracle he has more of them. And honestly, the Bumblebee isn't really any better. I'm almost tempted to say that his transformation is a bigger pain in the ass than the Ursi, but at least he has an excuse that he's actually trying to transform rather than curl up into a ball underneath a wall of kibble. But ultimately, the simple fact of the matter is that both of these are micro masterpieces of shit. And that's not half of what I have to say, but it's enough of what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.